So hello and welcome to this webinar on product management brought to you by ESL IIT Mandi. I'm your host Amol Agarwal, and today we are going to have a wonderful session with an equally wonderful Mr. Manohar. First of all, welcome Manohar.
Hey, hi, Amal. Thank you for having me in this session.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to do this session on a such short notice. So to those unaware, Manohar is an alumnus of our college IIT Mandi. In fact, he is from the pioneer batch of our college. So before plunging in straight to PM related stuff, Manohar, could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hi guys. So I am one of those folks who joined ID Mandi back in 2009 when actually no one was aware of what ID Mandi or probably where Mandi is. I hope like people are not asking you the same question in 2020 at least. Had a probably like I would say a very adventurous 4 years at IIT Mandi, I guess. Lots of learnings academically, and but more importantly, like lots of learnings to basically survive in this corporate world. It's not easy, and probably even after that. Uh, so getting back at at ID, obviously it was a mixed bag in terms of opportunities that we had, and it was not easy but then I guess we took up a lot of stuff that we were offered. We tried to took a lot of diverse courses, and good thing was we had an option to explore more thanks to the policies that were given by the faculty and the academia during those times. And not to mention tag I mean Professor Tag always believed in having your own initiative, driving your own stuff without actually forcing stuff on you. So first year of ours happened at ID Rookie, and there we had an 80% attendance policy. But second year when we moved to IT Mandi in Mandi, we only had a 50% attendance policy. So, and which is
Oh,
probably
that's great.
one of the one of the very few institutes of national importance that actually had this kind of very free, have your own time. Like if you want to come, come. If you don't want to come, that come. So I mean that doesn't mean you will be very. I mean you will misuse this. But yeah, I mean we enjoyed this. It was freedom and all, and also there was an opportunity of uh, driving and narrating through all this stuff that obviously some of it is confusing, some of it. So now, obviously, I always wanted to go for a higher education. Like it always used to be, get an MS in US and probably get a job in Silicon Valley or something like that. But somewhere down the line, things didn't really uh, probably dots didn't really happen that way. Although I gave literally every possible exam that you could give as a outgoing undergraduate.
Yeah.
So eventually settled on B school, not because I had this enlightenment that I should do an MBA and probably become Sundar Pichai or something, as probably you guys created the poster. So nothing like that, but probably, I mean, I would be really honest because I guess honesty would be really a valued nugget here. See, there will be a lot of confusion. Okay, it's not easy figuring out life at 21. I don't think if everyone says that hey 21, by 23 I'm gonna build $1 billion startup, or 23 I'm gonna be a hotshot investment banker. I mean it's good to have those ambitions. Everyone has those ambitions. There's nothing wrong with that.
So,
But it's not easy to figure all these things out. So I would just not be too bragworthy and probably simply say that I was running the rat race. I wanted to be part of the rat race. Uh, Trying to probably win it, but that's the part of being in a race. You will never win it. You always be running in the race.
yeah, so
Either
just to be, like it's a sigh of relief for all of us. So when you were doing your undergrad, you also didn't had that much clarity, right? So
right,
most of
yeah.
the folks now also doesn't have clarity. So at what point of time, like let's say, did you figure out in undergrad, like yeah, this is the probable career option I'm going to see, or B school thought, entered your mind probably in third year, fourth year, or you just figured out like
Yeah, I
along the
such
way?
yeah, see, yeah, exactly. I would say it wasn't really it wasn't really like that. I wasn't enjoying engineering. That's where you should do something different. By that
Mhm.
logic, at some point I'll figure out that yeah, it's very tough being a manager because everyone eats up your time, eats up your peace of mind, all of that. So now what? Like, do you want to become a chef now by like Sanjay Kapoor? It's not like that, right? It doesn't work like that. So I mean, as fancy and probably, I mean, if someone says, do what you want, live how you want, I would rather say this guy is very privileged.
Yeah,
Yeah,
privilege is a
I
very
would
big
say
thing.
that because although follow your dreams is probably a pipe dream floated by probably, I don't know, since Three Idiots became this blockbuster, but I would rather say it's also a privilege because people have, I mean, different, like, different, the way they have been brought up, the way they have the world views, and probably, like, what they have been told by their parents and friends and relatives. All of that matters when you say follow your dreams, because what you're getting in your dreams is not just like what you have learned, it's also what
Yeah,
you've heard from others. So it's not really easy because, right? So in fact, what do you even dream? As Sigmund Freud says, you dream what you see in everyday life, and you see and hear all these things. So even your dreams are not really your dreams. So yeah, I mean, without sounding too philosophical, I say that it's pragmatic if you're confused, because that's the reality. You'll be confused. So at what point I figured it out? Obviously, we are running the rat race. Definitely wanted to be part of a echelons of management. Looking at myself, someone probably more creative, more leader driven, and all of that. But honestly, that is not the only thing that managers should have. But then my naive mind that time actually thought that maybe I'm not an engineering mind, I'm a managerial mind. So let me just move there. It's
okay.
basically that you do to justify your actions, honestly speaking. But then
So
that's also required because you don't want to regret your decision every time. Because after
yeah,
IITM, what do you do? There is no IAS, there is
yeah,
no
you cannot regret your decision after B school, right? So this is
yeah.
a very
So
unfiltered advice, and that would prove very good for us. So how you would relate, like your B school experience probably will be very different from your undergrad, right? So
that's
most of us
true.
want to
That's
do
absolutely
B
true.
school, like probably as a career option. So like B school is like a shift, right? Like people pursue it like a shift. So how do you narrate your experience of B
So
school?
from engineering school to B school is definitely a big shit. You're quite right when you say that. I would say that because engineering school was definitely exploring a lot of stuff because that's how IITs are built.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be knowing how an IIT Bombay grad would probably look at it because all of them are already like top shot JU rankers, and most of them will go into research positions and like these big probably like Microsoft, Google, and all of that. But at IIT Mandi, we were definitely exploring a lot of stuff, and we ourselves were unsure of like what's going to happen
Hmm.
at IIT Mandi itself. And considering that like we were the first batch without any seniors, without any actual hindsight of like what's going to happen, so it's a real chaos. Like it's a real labor in there. So, but B school was very different. One thing is at the B school, everyone is opportunistic. Everyone wants like the biggest job that on the campus. Everyone wants to build like the biggest career option that is possibly available. So the narrative completely changed. It's like now you're actually fighting for your life. It's literally like
Yeah.
that. So now the shift is good in a sense. Now at least I know that okay, एक ही चीज करना है, which is basically get the best job your like whatever you
Mainframe.
can get. Yeah. So you could have some limitations. मतलब तुमको accounting नहीं आता तो maybe like तुम finance में नहीं जा सकते whatever and all of that. But I understood like at least to the extent possible. Um, yeah, there is still a focus. Focus is that get the best job.
Yeah.
People around you look up and notice you.
Yeah.
Look at you as a loser after doing like so much of hard work. So at least
Yeah.
narrative clear hai. So
Yeah.
at least like you can now focus on what to do. Get the best grades possible as soon as you can, and be as much as opportunistic, be as much as greedy in getting as many certificates, whatever, like do all that jazz. Okay, so focus, be in your like be in the narrative that what companies are coming, where should I apply, how do I polish my CV, how do I present myself, like what are the buzzwords I should speak, what are the buzzwords I should not speak. It goes to that amount of detail, so it's very clear.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, like
So
entering into the B school, you start polishing your CV. did like fourth year, first semester. So it's like
Yeah, so
very different.
IITs are like more of exploratory thing, right? And B
Right,
school, you cannot make the same mistakes, right? It's a big investment in time and money.
right,
So,
right.
at what time
Absolutely.
did you figured out, like, let's say this product management sounded interesting, or let's do this, or let's try it out.
So that's very interesting, right? So I interned with a startup. Now every
Okay.
startup in Bangalore, in a way, is a tech startup only. I mean, you
Okay.
won't survive otherwise. I would say that because all of them have a website and an app. I know that's
Yeah.
like very basic tech these days, but still, that makes you like kind of like a digital company at least, if
Company.
not a tech company. So now I worked at this like curious media startup called like digital media startup called Media Ant. So what
Yeah.
it does is basically gives a platform for the advertisers and the brands basically. So the brands can basically talk about their the digital brands basically like Hotstar can say that, hey, look, I'm a 200 million platform where I get like 200 million like views during IPL, and on an average like 50 million views every day through my shows and all the IPs that I have on my website and app, right?
Yeah.
So now advertisers can see it. Oh, Hotstar seems like have that, but do I have? So now if I put in all the filters, ki Hotstar ka acha itna impression hai. Now my budget is this. So what are all the slots I can get? In within the optimum budget, what is the best like fill rate that I can get on Hotstar? Is it even like convenient to me if I'm like a very small SME with a minimal ad budget and all of that? Proposition back in the day, it was a bit ahead of the time also. So we built a dashboard for basically the print media options. So obviously
Okay.
media is print, TV, radio, nowadays even digital and all of that, right? So for print and radio, we have built a dashboard where any guy who wants to know what is the best. So hey, listen, I have a small perfume. I make perfumes and I offer them in, let's just say, Kerala. Okay, so now I want people of Kerala to notice the perfume that I'm making, and I'm looking to advertise in newspapers. How do I do it? Obviously, like you can talk to an agency, and agency is gonna put their margin on the top of like the fill
Yeah.
rate and gonna offer you some rate, and you wouldn't even know if that rate is the best rate. So Median basically bypasses the agency. You can just go onto the website, put in your details, you want to reach out to. So there are a couple of terms in the advertising parlance like reach, frequency, impressions, and all of that. So you can fill in all these details. You can put in your budget. They'll tell you, okay, you can advertise in Malayalam Manorama. That's like the best option for you. Maybe Malayalam Manorama is
Okay.
a bit expensive for you. Maybe don't go about that. Maybe just go to a little bit different. Or you want to do only to the English speaking audiences, then probably go to the Times of India Kerala version or something like that. So that's the premise of it. Now, basically, I just explained a big product, big digital product.
Okay.
Now, back in
Yeah.
2014, I didn't know that, like, this is literally
This
the
is a big
product
product.
management.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that we were doing product management, although we actually
Okay.
used Excel and, like, Excel to build the
Data metrics
dashboard.
and all. Yeah.
Yeah, so used Excel only to build the dashboard, and the Excels
Hmm.
were actually uploaded as, like, into the databases, and APIs were built on top of it to basically build this whole thing. So even today, the Excel that we worked on is the put keys in the data from the backend, like to show the data that you see on the front end. Obviously, the front end improved a
That's great.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the front end improved a lot in this like 5 years, but still the core of what we worked on still
It is
remains the
very
same.
rare for interns to like leave behind a legacy at the company they're working. So that's really
Yeah.
great.
So Samir Chaudhary, like who's a co-founder and like my boss during that time, he is an FMCG veteran and he understood, and he's one of the early. He's basically part of the early core team of Redbus when
Okay.
Redbus wasn't even like the Redbus.
Red bus. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was basically the marketing head at Redbus, and so he is basically a big name, and he himself is a NITIM Bangalore alumnus. So lots of learning in that sense. And that time we wouldn't even, I used to think that he's running an ad agency. I'm just working in an
Yeah.
ad agency that just has a fancy website. That's it. I mean, didn't even know about like all the. I mean, even Bangalore wasn't like that jazzy that time.
Okay.
This was even before the time Flipkart raised $1 billion.
Oh, so we didn't have unicorn
So
then.
Yeah, we didn't even have a unicorn then. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So basically, when PM role or startups, shallow startups were still jazzy. I mean, we still had good startup exits by that time.
Yeah.
I mean, Redbus itself was like a big startup, and Naukri and a lot of them were there. But still, like, currently startups are like more ubiquitous, right? Everyone knows about it. There are no more doubts about it, and
Yeah.
these guys have come of age now. Like Baiju Ravindran is also a billionaire, just like Mr. Tata or like Mr.
Yeah.
Ambani is.
So there is
So
respect and trust about them, right? Like as a society, we
exactly.
accept it that is a profession that can feed mouths, right?
And startups themselves are no more startups. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Vivo, Oppo, IPL to Dream 11 IPL. Obviously, we've come a
Yeah.
long way.
Yeah.
Pepsi to Vivo and Vivo to Oppo, Oppo to Dream 11. Obviously,
Yeah.
you can see the narrative shift.
Yeah. So the whole
So,
IPL is basically sponsored by Indian startups. So that is a good
yeah,
thing.
right.
And so talking more about like product management. So as you said, like startups industry was not established. So this PM role is very new, especially in India. Like people don't understand. So, like for the audience, could you just break it out for us that what is product management, like in simple layman terms, and then we can dive deeper.
So, I'll tell you basically what a very good mentor of mine on Twitter told me, okay, back in the day in 2017, okay.
Okay.
PM is anything. I mean, you can, instead of using all the jazzy words, I'll simply say one thing. I guess your PM role is basically anything that you need to do to make your product successful. As simple as that. If that means you
Okay.
need to learn design to make it successful, you need to understand design like Steve Jobs does, you have to do it.
Do it.
You need to understand data like, who is like the best data guy. Okay, like whoever it is. So maybe you need to do that. You need to like, do the best growth possible like Chamath of Facebook did back
Yeah.
in, I mean, so I'm sure you guys have read about Chamath Palihipitiya stuff, Sri Lankan guy.
Yeah.
So he's
Palpitya.
like the, yeah, Palihipitiya.
Hmm.
So, I mean, he grew Facebook to 1 billion users. So that's like a legend, right? So
Yeah,
if you
he
want, if you,
pioneered like let's say A/B testing. Like if I'm remembering right, he pioneered the
so
art of A/B testing, right?
yeah, he built a metric that like if
Yeah.
a user that comes on Facebook doesn't add 7 users in within 1 week,
Yeah.
I mean you're failing. So you're failing in some
Yeah.
way. So that's how they built to 1 billion users, 1 billion community. So yeah, I mean if that's what you need to do, then that's what you need to do. And if your metric means like get to whatever like 100K orders every day, maybe that's what you need to do. Whatever is if that means like you take on your own bike and deliver like 1,000 of these orders, maybe that's what you need to do. I mean, so that it basically breaks all the walls, basically breaks all the boundaries on our view of like what PM is. It's not like writing simple spec notes. It's not simply writing drawing good mockups on Balsamic or like Figma. uh so it basically transcends all of that. So I mean, that's what I could say. So I was just
Yeah.
discussing about the same thing with like some of my friends in the morning. Like they have actually noticed that I'm giving this. In some of my batchmates from ID Mandi, friends from ID Mandi. So they were just telling me like oh, you're giving this talk. Even I actually want to know what PM does. So I was just telling him this. So see, if you have a rockstar dev team, if you have a rockstar ops team, then role of PM is like a cheerleader. I mean, so
Yeah.
and no offense in using that word. I'm basically saying that you're more like a motivational guy.
You just sit
Okay.
back and like let
Yeah,
the show
you
run,
sit
right?
back, make sure, and let the show run. You're a
Yeah.
cheerleader. If you have any, if probably you don't have that privilege, then you're more like a ringleader. Okay.
Okay.
You basically group all of them. You try to like, I know ringleader is more in US English, it's more like a gang leader or whatever.
Yeah.
But still, like, you have to rally this team and probably do some damage there.
Yeah.
That means like, you don the role of a little bit of aggressive managerial kind of guy. You need to take on that role. So, because I mean, you put all the hard skills aside, you still, uh, you still have to make sure that, the leadership and the team management is on point,
Okay.
because that's a big part of this role, which a lot of books and blogs on it undermine. Because
Okay.
end of the day, you're dealing with, I mean, multiple teams. Multiple teams come with multiple issues. multiple egos, multiple problem sets. Now,
So,
how do you?
like the last bit you told about, like it is very different from the blogs and the books that are out in the market. So, could you talk a bit more about like PM role is a very glorified role if you like see a US perspective, right? So, but in
Yeah,
India it varies a lot. So, could you like break it more for us?
that's
That
so there is a very solid reason for that. In India, actually, we don't have a real product driven mindset yet.
okay,
I mean, I'm not saying that to undermine like what anyone else is doing, but some people in the ecosystem do agree with it.
okay,
Although a lot of people might disagree with it. I'm not saying that like we don't have it 100%. I'm saying that we have it like
less
slightly in a lesser degree compared to
degree,
Silicon Valley. Okay.
okay,
I mean, we didn't invent the social networking, right? They did.
yeah,
We didn't invent Swiggy's or like Ola's of the world, right? They did. So you have to accept that. Like, it's a
yeah.
tough pill to swallow, but you need to swallow it because that's the
Yeah,
truth,
we did follow them, right? So there is no
right?
two way about it.
So yeah. And now let's look at the successful digital companies in the country. Okay.
Yeah,
So probably the most successful digital company in India is Naukri.com and Shadi.com. Literally
yeah,
the dot coms of the world, right? Now, these are web based companies that existed even before we were doing the whole smartphone, mobile thingy, apps, and all of that, right?
yeah,
Now, is Naukri.com truly a product that digitally native user experience? No. Naukri.com works because of their see. There is a saying like in digital companies, okay. So you can productize most experiences, okay? But then
okay,
when you're productizing an operational or sales experience, the operational sales guys can either you need to learn the sales aspect of it first, or the sales
yeah,
guys will learn the product aspect of it first. So
okay.
it's a competition between these two, okay?
These
It's
two,
like it's like restaurants can build their own app
okay,
and can tomorrow deliver. Okay. So because restaurants are basically the sales and operations aspect of the ordering experience. Okay.
yeah,
Swiggy is this whole tech,
delivery,
design, product
yeah,
aspect of that. Okay. Either restaurants can learn it first or these guys will learn it first. It's like imagine a situation like where every cab driver in India is unionized and like they come fall under one umbrella and decide to build their own app and
Ola,
basically
yeah,
say ki chuck Ola, chuck Uber. What
yeah,
do then Ola and Uber do? So it's either
yeah,
they understand the operations first or these guys understand the tech first.
yeah,
Thankfully, anywhere in the world this didn't happen. It thanks to the millions of and billions of the VC dollars, only this happened.
yeah. The
Now
tech
let's
people
go back to
started
the
to
Naukri.
understand the industry. Yeah,
Exactly. Now let's go back to the example I just talked about, Naukri and Shadi. Okay. They work wonderfully well because of the excellent sales model that they 2 decades.
yeah,
You basically fill up an application on Naukri and try to advertise a job. You get a call from their sales representative in less than 15 minutes,
yeah,
offering you to take their subscription model immediately. And by the time you pay, he will even offer you like 60% discount on it. Make sure that like he will even give you the Excel of basically all the possible candidates and all of that. So there is no
yeah.
digital native experience here.
The
5 मिनट
sales is
में
a
तो
secret
एक
sauce.
या 5 मिनट में तो बंदे ने ही आपको कॉल करके पूरा बात किया है जस्ट लाइक इट हैपेंस इन एनी अदर इंडस्ट्री सिंस द लास्ट
Industry,
3 decades. So
yeah,
there is nothing like एक बटन पे सब कुछ हो गया, nothing like that. Okay. So that's like the secret sauce of it. And obviously in a lot of ways this network and operational excellence what made like truly these things successful. After that it's basically brand building and narrative building and all of that. So that obviously like you give good experience, customer experience, building all of that, so that happens anywhere. So let's now come to like this thing, right? Now the way it is different from Silicon Valley experience is basically because of this. Now if I go to now see if you consider the domain that I work in, which is basically digital media content and news.
yeah,
Now, we basically thrive on only DAUs and time spent, and a lot of the time, like distribution is very difficult. Okay, so then we depend on Facebooks and Instagrams of the world to distribute our content because asking like everyone to even download our app is also very difficult because
yeah,
you're competing with brands also. see again, it's the same example I can go back to, right? It's like obviously there is Dainik Bhaskar, there is Aaj Tak, there is Times of India, everyone who are basically the popular newspapers of this country.
Country.
Now, obviously, they can build an app. It's not like that's really difficult these days. I mean, yeah, you can build an Android app in less than a month, probably in less than weeks. So now either we learn doing content like them or they learn building a very
Like us.
good UX
Tech.
app like us. So now that's where the product mindset should fall in picture. But then what's happening is eventually we are being drawn to this. Since see, I mean, in India, competition is very intense. Ad dollars are very low. So then you are basically, I mean, I'm basically talking more on my experience here. So then you're forced to like, kind of do the features that have already worked and
Yeah.
not really innovate. Now that's where like, see innovation, everyone says innovate, but then you can only innovate if there is I mean, if there is not too much risk and like, investment loss with failure. But since like
Okay.
too much is riding on it, you can't really risk to fail. And if you can't really risk to fail, then you basically go the safest route. Safest route is always do what already worked for others.
Yeah. So
So if I'm
Manohar,
doing what,
let's.
yeah,
Manohar has prepared a presentation for us, like to let us more know about what exactly is PM role and what are the variations in it. And after that, we can dive into how we as a people can break into sort of. So over to you, Manohar. Uh,
sure.
we can start
So
with the presentation.
I'm gonna resume my
Yeah.
presentation. So you guys can see my presentation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I talked about most of the things anyway, but I'll just quickly give a rundown. I guess like it's a very curious question, and I just went with the most popular Venn diagram that's there on what a PM role is, which is basically given by one of the most pioneering PMs and PM gurus of Silicon Valley, Martin Erickson. You can Google him up probably after this session. Very interesting guy. Did a lot of frameworks on PM. I would really recommend you guys like just go through his blogs and websites. So as obviously the Venn diagram is self-explanatory, PM basically is a very interdisciplinary role. Basically, kind of falls into a lot of these multidisciplinary functions. Um, so yeah, and I just added I thought like this screenshot from this article from Wall Street Journal was very interesting because when they did a survey back in 2017, I guess 2018, they have actually come to know that the most coveted job title for MBAs coming out of like these schools like Wharton, HBS, and all of Harvard and all of that is basically to become a product manager in a tech company. So product, I would definitely say that PM title is like the investment banker title from early 2000s before the financial crisis and the Lehman Brothers collapse, like eventually put a seal to the investment banking domain.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. I guess without. So I thought like I would basically talk about like types of product managers before actually explaining the skill set that's needed. Um, One thing is that PM is a very vaguely defined role in India. I guess like that's why I wanted to say that like people might have might have been writing that they are product managers at certain companies that they do, but like it's always a mixed bag. So I just want to explain like all the different PM roles that are there. So many PMs basically that work at early stage or like very small startups or mostly growth product managers. What a growth product manager does, I'll just like quickly explain. So see, eventually like most of these startups have apps or websites. I mean, website is obviously web is like so 2000ish. So mostly 2020 may you will only have an app. So and obviously like you want users to use your app before actually you improve your product. Dive into the data to for the improvement and probably look into your instinct of the market, understanding of the competitors and all to further improve it. But you need to have users, right? Before anything happens, you need to have critical mass using your product to even understand whether your product is fitting the PMF, product market fit, and all of that. So
Yeah.
growth guys basically do manage, like, they kind of have like this sales target, like yeah, this quarter we need to probably cross like a 1 million 1 million down installs with, like, probably 30% of them using the app, roughly dubbed as the daily active users and monthly active users and all of that jazz. So for different startups, like, different metrics, but like for everyone, like, it's still growth. Probably for e-commerce, it's obviously orders. I mean, I can come onto that, but obviously if I'm not ordering, it doesn't make sense. So e-commerce, it's orders, Swiggy, Uber, and all of these guys. It's basically transactions that take place on the platform. So eventually growth is about basically either business that you're getting or views that you're getting, impressions that you're getting, installs that you're making, and how many people are using it and all of that. Data product manager is basically behind the scenes kind of role, kind of becoming important in large organizations and probably startups that have passed the PMF test, and now probably have a lot of users. But now probably, how do you say that they don't like this feature anymore, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, data guy goes into, like, all of these metrics, like how many people are clicking that button, how many people are clicking this button. After clicking this button, like, where are they going? What are the basically click through rate on probably like this URL inside the app? And let's just say revenue people. Let's just take the example of Swiggy app. Okay, on the Swiggy app, once you make the order, you can see the order page, like, where they give you the details and all of that. If you keep scrolling down, they basically show you some ads. Most notably, they show you ads of a credit card or something like that. So now, how many times you would have even clicked that, right? So now, obviously, the data product manager, like, looks into these kind of things, conveys them to the designer or probably the lead product guy, who basically kind of like groups all of these guys, and probably they either do a design improvement or probably a placement improvement or something of that sort. It could be even a visual improvement, like, probably this thumbnail would help click through rate better than probably some other thumbnail that you're using. So everything is data, and making sense of data is obviously most important thing that you do. They're basically designers, but with some leverage and some say on what should go into the product. So more like UX rather than UI. So UI guys are essentially UI guys. I mean, they just execute it on the Sketch or a Figma. They get the mockups. Either they make the mockups based on the premise and node or spec sheet given by the product manager, uh, or probably like simply look through the mockup that's made on Figma or Balsamic. But then design product manager slightly moves above that. Probably, like, looks everything to design. Now you have to understand that, like, some apps don't care about design because
Okay.
Amazon doesn't care about design. Okay, because, like, when you order its thing on Amazon, you don't order on it because, like, you like their rounded corner buttons. You like ordering a fridge on Amazon because you know that they will probably deliver the most authentic product and probably in the timeline that they're promising. If they're saying 1 day delivery, they'll do 1 day delivery. You trust Amazon
Yeah, their
brand.
USP is
Because,
very different from other.
yeah, that USP is very different. Like, you don't do it because, like, you can swipe or scroll better on Amazon than Flipkart. Okay. So sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes you simply order because he's giving the best discount and best cashback. So now pricing is not something designer does. It's basically the marketing guys or like the procurement guys take care of, which is a entirely different, like, department
Ball game. Yeah.
from, yeah, different ball game. So now, where design matters, probably, like, if I take the example of Tinder, right? Now, very fancy and very different UI from what we have been seeing in dating apps till the time. Swiping right, swiping left. It's almost like a catalog of humans is presented before you, a catalog of guys or girls, and then you keep swiping. Now, that's a very different psychological experience altogether. Maybe that's why Tinder made a lot of difference in the, casual dating and
Dating
meeting
community.
people. Yeah.
Hmm.
So now you can say design is very different in that kind of, like, I mean, design probably helped, like, probably improve the dating experience there. So that's what I would say. Even Snapchat, right? They have come up with stories, which is now being adopted by literally every social networking app
Everyone.
and everyone. Literally, not just social networking, any content app. Literally, everyone
Yeah.
has something called as stories. On the placement, the style, the visual aesthetic, everything is copied from Snapchat,
Okay.
right? So a TPM, tech product manager, very, I think, self-explanatory. TPM basically generally available in most B2B enterprise companies, where essentially there are only two things: very strong tech product and a very strong sales team. That's it. You have a B2B software. You want to sell it. Obviously, you need strong salespeople. Now, sales cycle works very differently in enterprise products. So they don't need like a design product manager, data product manager. They just need a very strong tech product manager.
Yeah.
TPMs also exist in. So so there is also a tech program manager, which is probably there in Amazon mostly, and even Microsoft. Uh,
Microsoft. Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how is it different from a product manager, but I would say there is a large overlap between all these titles. But eventually, these guys are somewhere between a mix of an engineering manager and a product manager. So since I'm not like completely aware of like the roles and responsibilities at individual companies, I'm not gonna comment much on that because that would be wrong on my part to do that. I'm just giving you a global understanding which I have read and probably heard from some peers. Business product manager basically comes in a wide variety of like range. Some so you would have heard about product marketing managers, which is basically in advertising. Most people with advertising and marketing background do it. It's essentially trying to explain your product in the most basic, still a marketing per se jazzy way. So mostly like advertising people do it. Like how do you explain cred? I'm not sure if you guys use that. So how do you explain cred, right? To a layman. So obviously these guys have done this crazy ads with Bapi Da and like Anil
Yeah.
Kapoor,
Quite
Madhuri Dixit,
famous
like
now. Yeah.
So now obviously it's trending, like So they keep saying like not everyone gets it. Now not everyone gets it is a very nice punchline. If you ask me why, it's actually a play on the product itself. It's not just a
Yeah.
play on the ad itself. It's also a play on the product itself because
Yeah. Their
not
USP
a
is this
no,
elite club
no,
of
no, exactly. You can't use credit if your credit score is less than 750.
750. Yeah.
So essentially, not everyone gets it because there are a lot of people whose credit score is even 600 also. So not
Yeah.
everyone gets it, and not everyone gets it because the ad itself is very confusing and like probably
Confusing.
very. I mean, obviously, bunch of guys this coming and dancing and auditioning, so confusing. So all of that, those things essentially like and product marketing manager essentially like needs to explain that like Snapchat. So basically like build stories and like all of that. So easy explanation of your products is what they do. And there are other kind of business product managers also where they essentially I forgot to talk about the the basically uh, the highest echelons of the PM role, which is kind of like this product manager only, but he's essentially the product, kind of like the product head, wherein he kind of has a leverage on all of these teams. Okay.
Okay.
So most of these guys, at least many of these guys at top companies are generally MBAs. Some people maybe bypass MBAs if probably because of the sheer experience in the
Field.
probably in the company or in
Yeah.
the domain. That can happen definitely. Uh, so now what do these guys do, and what is it that like that's very different? See, till now I just talked about a very hard skill oriented PM role. These
Yeah.
guys are very soft skill driven, and soft skills meaning leadership, driving vision, even defining vision to the matter. What's going to happen? Why should we do outstation rights? Why don't we just
Yeah.
stick to point A to point B kind of ride? Okay. Why should we do rentals? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that means like, now there is gut. Obviously, one should really be thorough with their gut and can follow their gut if they're really sure of it. But then gut itself is very intuitive, right? Your gut is basically a throughput of what you have read about the market, what you've understood about the market. How do you see the market evolves? Now, understanding all of that and even predicting all of that is not like a is not an easy thing altogether. So, visionary product managers basically are expected to kind of predict all this to a reasonable amount of success.
Yeah.
So,
So,
no, why?
uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have talked about this product manager. It varies hugely across companies. So let's say, and it is very clear understanding that in startup companies, product roles are not so clearly defined, and a PM would probably expected to do a lot of roles, and it established
So
MNC.
I just explained all of what you're probably going to ask in the next slide. So,
Okay. Yeah, we
yeah.
can skip
So
probably. Yeah.
yeah, I'll just quickly finish this slide because this slide is actually gonna be a lot more intuitive to you guys because I talked mostly about like the things that you need to learn or at least know if you really want to be probably a PM in future.
PM. Yeah.
Okay, right? So I briefly defined three blocks of it as the Venn diagram itself suggested, right? So this is mostly hard skills. Okay, no one can teach you how to be a leader or how to be a
Leader.
team driver, right? So I'm basically throwing away the I'm basically skipping the soft skills and also the vision, strategy, and part of it because you can't learn vision through a book or probably from experience. Vision is mostly a cumulative experience of all of these things. So
Like
I'm gonna
right.
skip that
Yeah.
also. Yeah. So let's talk about tech. Adequate understanding of tech and systems that's really needed. I mean, you can't sit and so your dev basically asks you कि इसका API ready नहीं है, and you can't be like API क्या होता है. So this is a very 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 basic example, but I just want to drive the point. So now, how do you do it? You can do it like I mean, internet is full of like learning materials on this. You can so let's just say you want to work at Swiggy. Let's just say what does Swiggy do like on a day-to-day basis? How does their infra work on the back end? How does their server-side systems work? You can learn most of these things even on Google at a very basic level at least. So how does their app work? Like how much like inputs or data requests that it takes for each second, and how do they make sure that like they don't drop the bandwidth, and on the native Android or native iOS, like if you want to learn anything specific, you can learn, which basically teaches you a little bit about the front end. So that's what I would suggest. And you don't need to. So see, if you can actually code, even to even to a reasonable degree, like maybe like a few lines of code, that would be always great. Now, why is that? Not because someone is going to ask you to code during an interview. That's only because, see, you think of a great feature, okay, and then you ask your devs to basically write code for it, and you basically build a spec sheet and like basically forward it to your design team first, and probably you even probably already have built the mock and send it to the design teams where he fleshes out the design, puts up nice colors, gives it a very nice flow, logical and like very intuitive, and then the dev looks at it and probably estimates. Let's just say he takes, yeah, this takes 3 weeks. Probably it doesn't, and probably it takes more than that. How would you know if you yourself don't understand the complexity of the feature you just thought about, right? So that's why understanding of tech and systems is important, and that takes me to the second point now, which is basically the when dev says it takes 3 weeks to work, sometimes maybe it really does. So now your CEO on top of you or probably your founder basically यार मेरे को तो 1 week में चाहिए क्योंकि मेरे को कुछ launch करना है, and उसके बिना like the app doesn't work or probably we won't get the news or whatever. Now you're in a soup. Your founder obviously there's a fiduciary obligation that you need to finish this, but then dev is not a Superman, right? He's not going to finish in 1 week. If he can't finish it in 1 week, sometimes you just can't. It's not going to be like the Social Network movie where like Zuckerberg like just stood all night and built a face smash website or something like that. Sometimes it just doesn't work like that. So then that's where the empathy part comes in. You take an empathetic view of it, probably try to build a compromise between all the teams, probably bring down this 3 weeks to maybe 2 weeks or something, and then talk to your founder also about it. Now, this is where your negotiation skills, your team driving skills, leadership skills, and even probably conviction, all of them basically come into picture.
Comes into play.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. all of that can only happen if you basically build a empathy with your teams. You can only build your empathy if you know what their work is, right? You can't build an empathy with a plumber if you don't know what plumbing is, or probably what plumbing even entails. So you can't just say, "Yeah, this pipe doesn't work. Just fix it in like a minute." Sometimes it might take 2 hours, and you can only be empathetic with the plumber if you actually know what tools that you use and probably the workflow, all of that. So
Yeah,
that's
so this
the
is a really nice point you mentioned, because I have read somewhere that this PM role is basically like a CEO role minus the perks, right? Like you need to find a balance between all the teams, right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that takes me to the third point. So now, yeah, that is a very interesting comment where Amol just made, right? So CEO. So although a lot of blogs did talk about PM like
Yeah,
CEO of the product, a lot of founders actually take offense to it, and a lot of the actual CEOs of the companies also take offense to it because see PM, yeah, definitely kind of like CEO of the product. That's where Chief Product Officer basically reports to CEO only. So that is there, but like, see, eventually, if you call yourself CEO, right, in some ways you're putting yourself on a pedestal.
yeah,
Now, what's this guy's name? Puneet Saini or something? Whatever, I forgot. So the guy who basically worked at Flipkart for 1 year and then moved back to Silicon Valley, who used to be a GPM, Group Product Manager at Google. Yeah, Puneet Soni, I guess. Yeah. So he used to basically say that PM is not a CEO of product or whatever. PM could be even janitor of the product.
yeah.
I mean, if that's what it entails, like you need to clean up the room of where your devs and design team sit. Maybe that's what you need to do so that
True.
like they're happy and finish your feature and deploy it
Whatever
in
it
like
takes, right?
probably
Yeah,
day. Whatever it takes. As that's exactly what I first said, right? Whatever it takes. If that means serving coffee and tea to your devs and designers, that's what the PM role is then. So it's not just Jira tickets and like dashboards, Slack, and all of that. I mean, that's what you read on blogs and hear about it. But sometimes it could be really like distributing some samosas and teas also. I
yeah.
hope it doesn't come to that, but yeah. So now I just briefly just go through this third line. So see, I mean, obviously PM needs to be very thorough about timelines and all because see a lot of times this negotiation and like all this team thing, right? What it does is essentially like you need to bring up a discipline and you need to basically obviously you would have read about sprints and all of that and in typical like large IT or large tech companies there is even like a sprint master and like I don't know there are a bunch of like names for it and all of that
Scrum
so
Master and all, yeah, agile
scrum
thing.
master and all of that agile master scrum master and all of that so now you need to understand all of these frameworks I mean there are a bunch of frameworks but you still need to respect them and basically understand what it is intuitively put all those frameworks into your workflow and basically sometimes it's just a job of like a lot of excels a lot of dashboards a lot of calendars so sometimes it's just that and that's okay because it's not that like PM role is not this it's still this with a lot of all of that design tech jazz okay so since you don't write tech at least you make sure that you manage tech because essentially you are a manager. I mean, it literally says product manager, right? So yeah. Now, when it comes to design, right? Now, I know that most PMs actually don't code, so at least it helps that they at least understand design because design is more perceptive and probably like unlike code, which is probably like very different and probably the tools and tool set and like everything that required there is a little bit different. So design is probably a little bit more straightforward in terms of basically executing it. I mean, any hotshot designer still has to use a Figma or a Sketch to design like his design. So design is UI. So it helps that you can visualize interfaces. It helps that you have a lot of interest in machines and how machines like transform on a layout, web layout or a mobile layout, and all the interaction and everything that you basically see in everyday life, and how you can improve it in a more user centric way. And there are a bunch of terms like in design. in design ecosystem itself, like human-centered interfaces and all of that, and also a little bit of understanding of aesthetics and all the visual perception also helps. Like imagine yourself using Swiggy app where you don't see orange but you see let's say black. Just think for a moment, how would you think about it, right? So now I'm not saying obviously like the founding team or probably the founding design team at Swiggy had this like big insight that food app bana rahe to orange mein hi hona chahiye boss. Probably not like that, but I think in the hindsight we can definitely say looking at orange is probably much more perceptive than looking at a black probably app probably, right? So I think we can all agree with that, right? So similarly, like you can think of other apps and probably like you can imagine the visual aesthetic to be slightly very different or probably like very dramatically different, and just understand how that would have probably changed your perception, experience, and everything. So those things matter, right? So so obviously having that kind of perception and intuition obviously helps. Now it's not easy to get it. It you only can get it after. Because this bit is not scientific. This bit is more psychological, where there is no clear scientific proof कि यार मतलब यही color क्यों use करना है or whatever. So obviously you get it like with experience, reading a lot about like consumer psychology, consumer interest, and all of that. So now, obviously, some hands-on experience in building mockups, prototyping really helps. See, some people do ask me, do I really need to learn Figma? Now, learning Figma is not a really tough job. You can actually learn it, and it's good if you learn it. But it's okay if you don't learn it also, or rather, sorry, it's not okay if you don't learn it. If you actually can learn it, please learn it. I'm saying it's not okay if you don't know it. Like immediately got a job, but you just don't know it. But you're probably like asked to do it. See, as long as you're actually not executing the actual design itself, and there is an actual UI designer who can execute it, it's okay if you can like basically use a pen and paper and build it on the paper and basically just give it. It's okay because I mean there is a literal term for it called low fidelity
So
prototyping.
for data designs, yeah, prototype.
Yeah, so you can basically take a paper, draw a neat interface. It's okay if so. Let me tell you, one of the best PMs, or probably the best PM in the world, Ivan Spiegel, who also happens to be the co-founder and CEO of Snapchat. Uh, in his first interview, explanatory interview about what Snapchat is and what you can do, he basically took up the paper on which he drew the first Snapchat, like design. Four screens where like he explains like how do you click on the camera button and like open up the snaps and all of that. So he basically made up all the mocks by himself, and it also happens that even Spiegel studied product design at Stanford. So yeah, I mean he literally learned it, so that's a different thing. But what I'm saying is you can keep mocking things. It's nice also. I mean, it just creates a good creative aspect also in you because PMA is equal parts creative, equal parts analytical job. So sometimes it's good to be creative because you at least get one part of it right. You can still be a successful PM,
Yeah.
right? So now let's just quickly hover over the business angle. Now, business
No,
angle, I mostly
sorry to interrupt you. If you could just go over this slide quickly because they're getting a lot of questions, right? So,
okay.
in the
So I guess like the business angle, I mostly talked about it because product marketing manager, like advertising marketing and APM,
yeah,
it's mostly analytics data. And I did talk about the generalist PM who. So I am someone who is more of a generalist PM, okay, with an equal parts understanding of tech, with an equal parts understanding of design. But I am the one who gets the dips on we need to do with the product. Okay. So if I say that like we need to build an in shorts kind of short news kind of feature, we build it because I see potential in it becoming a big thing even in the vernacular audience. So I basically take those calls, obviously with a little bit of inputs from all the teams and what they think about it, but I take the dips. So generalist PM is more about getting your instinct right, getting your gut right. It's more about defining and driving it. So it requires a lot of consumer psycho analytical understanding of your domain, your vertical, and all of that. Okay, so I don't want to waste a lot of time. But I did want to talk a few minutes about this thing because I'm sure, like,
Yeah, we have most of
probably,
questions regarding this.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know that because see, I mean, I would be quite honest if probably not a lot of guys have already thought of like this guy is basically spewing a bunch of like jargon, bunch of like verbal uh, stuff. So probably like if he just explains how we can break into it, probably thank you and like yeah. So so I actually put myself into your shoes for a sec
Okay.
and actually build this slide after like I put myself into your shoes. So see what happens is most of you guys fall into scenario A, okay. So some of you guys can fall into scenario B, and a few of you guys, if you guys have like longer and probably like more long-term PM aspirations, can fall into scenario C. Rather fall into, I would say, can take the scenario C because you don't fall into scenario C. You have to make scenario C happen. So I'll mostly talk about scenario A first. So see, if you really want to be PM, right, and at some point of time in your future career and you're really sure about it, either because like you just find the role very fancy or probably there is like too much chatter about this role these days particularly in the last few years. So I guess the best thing is like network with like a lot of these early stage founders who are probably mostly your age or probably a few years older than you, and you can reach out to them on Twitter or LinkedIn. Twitter helps even more than LinkedIn. um, so, and then probably can write. See, I would actually advise you guys at this stage to actually practice the habit of writing cold emails. Okay. So, now let me tell you, most successful self made startup founders uh, actually, at some point of time in their lives, would have written a cold email that would have actually gotten their first VC meet or first customer or something like that. Okay. So, cold emails really help. In 2012 or 2013, I wrote a cold email. Unfortunately, I didn't get the role, but at least like I'm still touching with that founder. He's doing great stuff in the renewable energy space. Uh, I mean, I am not interested in that space, so I didn't really take that offer up much further in the pipeline. But yeah, write cold emails. It really works. At least you get conversations going. You get to network with people. So now that's the prerequisite that you guys need to work on. I really don't have much advice on it other than writing cold emails and doing a lot of networking. It's tough, but you do it. That's the hustle you should have at 21, 22 age. So when once you join, right, and most of these early stage startups, right, they're not really sure about what they're doing. Okay, that's why they're early stage, not yet figured out PM Fed, not even sure if this really gonna even work. But you don't need to worry about that. If it folds up, you still can get another job. It's not really difficult, or you can still join another early stage startup. It's not difficult. Now, what are you gonna do there? Early stage startups, you don't actually become a product manager on day one because at early stage startups, founder himself is the PM. Okay, क्योंकि
Yeah.
फाउंडर के दिमाग में ऑलरेडी है क्या करना है ही इज बेसिकली द प्रोडक्ट राइट नाउ इफ इट्स अ थ्री पीपल और 10 पीपल स्टार्टअप आप मैनेज किसको करोगे क्योंकि फाउंडर भी शायद कोड ही लिखता होगा डायरेक्ट तो एंड नाउ यू आर गोना नॉट गोना मैनेज द फाउंडर हिमसेल्फ राइट नाउ देन व्हाट इज इट दैट यू गोना डू यू आर गोना बी द गेट शिट डन गाय ओके founder needs printouts, you get printouts. I'm just like, okay, kind of like humoring here, but you get the gist, right? So now,
Yeah.
get shit done, guy. You also understand the product meanwhile, okay? Because you don't go there with the actual understanding of the product. More often than not, the founder will hire you because of the hustle that you're showing, probably because of you have an interesting CV, or probably आपका GPA अच्छा है, maybe that helps. But and all of that, or maybe genuinely आप interested हो इस product में. So something like that. But then while working there, you can build bunch of skills. You can actually understand your product and looking at the customer data, looking at the interaction data, CX data. You can actually understand what is it that users are doing with the product. And since you're doing like a lot of things, you're looking at basically even you're looking at the Excel. Probably even you shipped the first order to your first customer. It's that you yourself did it, and you can even telephone that guy later on and understand from him what he liked about your product and what he didn't like about product. Does he even think now positively about this product? That means you are even now tabling the NPS and all of that, right? Now, doing all of this will actually give you real insight into the product. And somewhere down the line, you yourself would say, यार ये बटन तो इधर नहीं आना चाहिए था, शायद ये वहां पे रखेंगे तो discovery easy होगा.
Right.
Now that insight is probably the basically the PM level insight, and you will do it without even being called a PM. The day you do it by yourself, you've basically become a PM in your mind. And once that happens, you can actually apply very confidently at actual PM roles, at probably at growth stage companies at least, if not the mature companies themselves. This is probably the best scenario that I would suggest for young folks with zero experience or probably very limited internship kind of experience, because most of the guys think that they're figured out by reading a few blogs or whatever, but that's not what this role is about. It's always good to have a hands-on experience, because see, now I'll contrast this a little bit with the MBA PMs who actually become PMs straight out of the business school. Okay. Am I still audible?
Yeah, you're audible, but probably video is not clear.
Yeah, actually, my light just went up.
Yeah, no problem,
So,
no problem.
so I'll just continue with the presentation.
Yeah,
So, so I'll just briefly contrast this with the MBA PM experience. Okay, now then, like, so Manohar, you're telling us to do all these things. This is good, but why do MBAs get like straight out of PM this thing? See, the expectation there is that MBAs understand strategy. Okay,
yeah,
so and obviously, like a young undergrad having studied engineering courses, they wouldn't really be understanding like PM, right? Or strategy basically. I mean, would you guys even would have written a vision statement, right, before basically getting into PM, or for that matter, basically corporate also? At least MBAs would have written it as their corporate strategy assignment, or probably even gave a quiz on it in their strategy 101. So the expectation is that they know some of it. Okay. So
yeah,
they are basically handled, chalo bhai, like, you define what should we do with, like, all our intels. You tell us what to do. Okay. So that won't happen with you guys. Okay. So because do you guys even understand Porter's five forces? Do you guys even understand how to all these like TAM, TSM, all of that? Maybe you guys do, because all it takes is a simple Google search to understand it. It's not like a rocket science or something. But still, you don't have institutional learning of it, which an
yeah,
MBA has. So that difference you have to respect. And so, which is why scenario AI is the most applicable this thing, because if other way, if you're getting a great job out of college, you would probably still take that, even if you want to be PM, because you would still explore being a PM probably by working in this role first, right? Which is why I talked about scenario B. So scenario B is when where you basically say that, let's just say you get a coding job, or probably any job, any good job that you consider decent, adequately well in terms of like experience and role and probably the compensation and everything, right? And then, but preferably, I'm going to contrast this if it's a dev role. And dev roles can actually successfully transition into PMs, particularly in a very strong product focused company that basically works, uses tech, and tech is the biggest, differentiator. Then there are people who understand the market, understand the consumer. If you have a little bit of understanding of that in your experience, you can actually really, and you have interest in PM, it's really good if you transfer to PM, because first things first, your empathy will be highest, and you can even be successful. And your build the only thing you need to understand is like why should I build this? You know that you can build it, okay, but why should I build it is the part you need to figure out then.
Yeah.
Okay. So but then if you are curious about it and even if you see yourself career for yourself in doing that, then you should definitely do it because you already yourself have figured out yourself can figure out rather the how part and or the how part basically, and even the when part, like when I should be able to do it or whatever that. Now the scenario C is always the best scenario. And basically either of it, get an MBA or be a startup founder. Both of them are, I know, equally difficult. But then these are the guys who are basically the visionary and the vision-driven, product-driven mindsets. The guys who basically drive products. Rest of the guys execute products. They're still PMs, but they execute rather than like drive. I mean, they don't. They are not the ones who are going to say, let's launch stories. Let's just launch location driven, location based, whatever network and all of that. They don't say that. It's these guys who say that. The generalist product manager, basically the strategy,
Yeah.
the product managers who drive strategy. Okay, so these are the guys that say, let's just put preview scoops on top of Netflix, so that like we give users a preview of all the content that we have, all the top content or the trending content that we have. And yeah, I just yeah. So whether we should put trending or whether we should put like I mean the
Regional
new or the
content. Yeah.
latest. No, whether
Okay.
we should put trending or whether we should put latest.
Okay.
Latest is different from trending, right? Or whether we should put popular or whether we should put latest. What is it that like that should come on feed? Or let me give you an even more interesting, like that Twitter always has a problem with, or literally every social network for that matter. Should we do feed last in first out, or should we do an algorithmic feed?
Yeah.
Who takes this call? Now both of this, now taking this call is an enormous, gonna have an enormous impact on how your users gonna use your product, how your ads gonna look, how your monetization is gonna happen. It literally has basically 100% impact on everything that your product is gonna do. So that's why it's a very visionary and like very much important role. Now let on that note, let me give you a couple of examples on this note. So now Instagram actually changed at least twice from an algorithmic to last in first out, and from last in first out to algorithmic. Now Twitter also had the same conundrum, and the probably the product head there just thought, or probably they just thought ki, chalo yaar, I mean, we will give both the options. So on Twitter,
Yeah.
if you go, you basically have a button on top where you can actually click on it. You will be given two options: personalized. Personalized obviously means algorithmic, or should I view the latest? Basically, the latest tweets first, last in first out. So he just has. I mean, this guy is like so couldn't make up his mind. He actually asked his designer to basically
He
create the
outsourced
button,
it to
and
users, right?
yeah, he is basically putting भाई तू कर भाई तुम्हारा मर्जी है जो करना है तुमको वो कर तुमको लेटेस्ट देखना है लेटेस्ट देख तुमको एल्गोरिथमिक देखना है तो ठीक है मैंने तुम्हारे इंटरेस्ट के ऊपर मैंने बना दिया एल्गोरिथमिक देख ले now Instagram guys already have like 6 buttons like 5 buttons on नीचे and like 3 buttons on top उनका तो कोई स्पेस ही नहीं मिला बटन बनाने के लिए तो they just said कि यार मतलब चलो हम हर 6 महीने चेंज करते रहेंगे whichever gives us the best revenue let's just do that probably like that's
Yeah.
what they're doing. I don't know. So see, I guess you
Yeah.
understood right now what literally is happening here, right? Now if you go back, right? Now the data product manager would have come up with the data. Designer product manager would come up with like all the design options. Growth product manager would have said कि यार नहीं यार हम लोग algorithmic ही करते algorithmic में ना I can show Roger Feather memes also and cat memes also. फिर तो मतलब फिर तो if the guy likes tennis also and cats also वो ज्यादा देर रुकेगा engagement बढ़ जाएगी. Something like that, right? So I mean, now every team has their own metric, right? And every team are owners of their own metrics. So it's the visionary product it's the product head who's going to drive the vision. Is probably either going to prioritize growth or probably going to prioritize designer because probably design is going to be important in this. Probably not other things. So yeah, I mean it's essentially that. So I
Yeah.
just want to conclude it, guys. I think it's probably gotten a bit hectic. So
Yeah.
I guess.
we can dive into questions, right? So we have a lot of questions. So you laid out for us how the different pathways we can have. So the first question we have from I don't know the name. So could you suggest some roadmap to get into product management role after college if a person is not from a typical CS or dev role? So is PM community or let's say PM careers are available for these kind of situations?
Sorry, can you please
Yeah.
repeat that? I lost
So
some of
the
it.
question is,
Sorry.
how should one go about PM role straight out of college after undergraduation if one is not from dev role or CS background?
So, as I suggested, I would suggest the scenario A, most optimistic, not optimistic, in fact, most pragmatic. I mean, I don't really give optimistic advices to people because they're good on talk, but
Yeah.
actually zero on like implementation. So I always give pragmatic like advices to people which they can execute. Like, I mean, that's why they're coming to me for advice. And I have an obligation to at least make sure that some of it works. So the most pragmatic scenario is the scenario A, where see, you guys already have one big point of resume that you come from an IIT. So the expectation is that you guys have the smarts. The founders or the management team is not worried about that anymore. Okay. Now the only
Yeah.
thing that's left is your commitment levels and your interest and curiosity in this. Someone is doing something really innovative in HR tech, recruitment tech. But are you interested in doing recruitment? क्या पता
Yeah.
आपको HR से ही बात करना पड़े to build this product. So are you actually interested in talking to HRs? Because if you want to build this product, that's whom you are going to talk to. Someone is building a logistics product that only like let's just say trucking वो black buck वगैरह है ना so trucking so आपको truck driver से बात करना पड़ेगा so are you interested in talking to truck drivers you ask yourself that question are you interested in like looking at this domain so that question that you need to ask yourself now once you understand and have a clarity on that question go and apply and I don't think like I personally think having IIT on your resume keeps a bit of your foot already in the door. You just need to
Yeah.
hold it well and probably like engage the team well. Found basically more often than not you'll be interviewed by founders only for these roles. So you need to engage them and show a real interest. Real interest you can't fake it. Okay, because these are founders you're talking to. These are not some. Matlab, if you are interviewing with me, I don't have stakes in the app that I have. I don't have like I don't have like a 15% like stake in that app or for probably any person. So I'm not emotional about it. So I'm going to interview like a typical yeah. I mean I'm the manager and someone has applied. HR has given me a slot. She has arranged for the Zoom interview. I'm going to come for the interview. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. I mean yeah, if he's boring, I'll say okay, thank you for the interview. Thanks for applying. Let's uh, I'll probably we will HR will talk to you or something like that. But this is not going to be like that, and this is going to be a lot more intimate conversation because early stage startups are like that. They're looking for people who are going to take it to the next level. तभी तो उसको investment मिलेगा. If you are really interested in it, if you're going to join like a typical employee, neither is it gonna you're going to add value to it, or neither he is going to add value to it. But this is a very good place to understand PM because this is how you actually learn PM. Because now the only other way you can do it is you join all this upgrade ka product management course or probably like probably bunch of others also are doing now all of that. Now I wouldn't really say that these things are bad. Sometimes institutional learning, peer learning, mentor based learning is good. Some for someone uninitiated, it adds some value, if not a lot of value. If you are willing to spend for it, it's a lot more structured course. Like you learn everything by block. Some people actually benefit by that because they don't do well with a lot of chaos. They don't do well with too much information overload. Because like startup itself comes with some amount of chaos and labyrinth of like actions. So sometimes like what happens is
Hmm.
you need to be aware of that also. कि
Okay.
it's not like कि आप startup role में जाके like आप PM role भी सीख लोगे and like you'll actually work on your role also. So sometimes both of that cannot happen. because that PM experience that you're going to learn is a lot more immersive. It doesn't come because यार आज मैं design सीखूंगा. It doesn't come like that. It comes because आपको पता है कि आपके ऐप में यहाँ पे लोग क्लिक नहीं करते, तो you see a fault there and probably you think यार ये इंटरफेस शायद थोड़ा सा बेटर हो सकता है, या probably ये बटन इधर होगा तो probably click through rate better हो सकता है. Now I'm kind of dumbing it down, but at some point like this is what you need to be able to say.
Yeah.
Right. So now there is a lot of talk on Instagram's now bar, action bar. Ki why did they take out explore button and probably introduce a reels button? Now probably like the data guy probably told them, yeah, reels mein engagement zyada hai. People are just scrolling it like TikTok, and reels mein I can show like lot more ads. Now revenue guy also supported him saying that, yeah, हाँ आप reels लगाओगे तो I can show like one advertisement card like every like few seconds, or probably like once every third video or fourth carousel or whatever, right? Now both of this data backed up, the visionary product manager said, हाँ let's यार बस इसका उठाते हैं and like reels लगाते हैं. Okay, probably the brand head also walked into them and obviously Instagram, it's a new sub product of Instagram. Story to hai upar, stories hai to upar, and now you have reels on top, bottom. So now these are obviously things, is that these are the features that are gonna drive Instagram into the future. Initial days it was the scrollable feed. After that it was stories. Now it's going to be reels. So all of that clubbed and they took the decision. So now you're going to be that person in this role. Say like, hey, this button in this placement is not working for us. I see that and I talk to a lot of our users, customers, and they also echo my sentiment. I think so. Now you get that chance because no one is going to call you a product manager, but you will still get that inside yourself. And these real learnings are going to stay with you because I don't think like I think some companies are coming to IITs directly to recruit associate product manager roles at least. But again, see, it's a bit like this. Those guys probably are going to want the gold medalist or probably like the 9-pointers or something like that. Because at that level, they also look at this like a Microsoft ka SDE2 or like Flipkart ka SDE, like Amazon ka SDE1 or something like that. For them, it's like at equal levels in terms of a placement and HR perspective. Okay, so they're not just going to look at like a real fitment there. They're going to look at pedigree. Now, pedigree is obviously like very data driven. I mean, there can't be like 100 gold medalists. There will be only one gold medalist. अगर इसको gold medalist ही चाहिए, वो एक ही बंदे को hire करेगा. So, but obviously, I assume कि bunch of people want to be PMs. That doesn't mean like they throw away their dream, right? They still can become it. So that's why I still call the scenario A the most pragmatic scenario.
Yeah. So Manohar, we have another question. It is from Rishabh Dharmani. So his question is talking about long term. What are the career paths after PM, and what are the career growth opportunities that a PM role provides?
I think if you become a PM and want to be something else, I think it would be a bit difficult because once you associate with yourself with product, I think you either move up and go into strategy basically, and then probably become like a COO or like a CXO, basically some CXO. Yeah. If you have actually had the experience of driving products at like 100 million, probably even 1 billion kind of scale, then obviously like according to the ecosystem, you're someone who understands consumer like no one else, or at least who understands that particular domain, fintech, HR tech, whatever, food tech, whatever, right? Like no one else. So you either can move into strategy within the same company or at a different company, or there is an even bigger lucrative option. You can go into VC. VC is like a lot of product managers want, and this is a proven path in Silicon Valley. Now in India, whether it is really happening, I think it started to happen. I see some product guys like actually become like founders at their new startups, and then probably then if they exit from it successfully or unsuccessfully also, then they either like move into becoming a angel or like probably become part of a strategy team of a venture capital firm, right? Now it ties up with the strat option I talked about earlier. Because see, let's assume a VC firm that specializes to invest in edtech. Okay. Now you are someone who has built a very popular edtech product. Maybe not like a, I'm not talking like a founder. Maybe working at like, let's say you worked at Byju's only, probably like built some of the very successful features at Byju's, and everyone in edtech actually recognizes you. Now, for this to happen, it at least we're talking about at least a period of like 5 years at least. Okay. Now at that level, you are like an edtech guru yourself. You understand like where it goes. You have actually seen where it went, and you are part of like all the evolution. And you are someone who can even predict with a reasonable amount of success how it can evolve. Now, if you have that level of insight, obviously VCs तो बोलेंगे कि भाई तू आजा हमको बता दे कहाँ पे invest करना है.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's when you become the part of strat team in VC.
Yeah. So that's great. So the next question is, so this product management role looks kind of scrappy, and if someone is planning to do a startup in longer run, does this sounds like a good choice to start one's career if one is interested in entrepreneurship in longer run?
Yeah, definitely. Because I guess like some of the most successful career PMs are actually startup founders themselves, ex startup founders themselves. So, in fact, most early stage, most growth stage, early stage firms actually ask for prefer candidates with startup founding experience. So they don't even care if you have an ID degree or an IM degree, but they would definitely care if you're someone who had shown hustle, true grit, true determination in like building your own product. You could have probably been like as unsuccessful as probably the last guy on the block, but it's still fine with them. You at least showed initiative. That's what matters, like in building a product. uh, I mean, being a founder is like a very, it requires a lot of not just analytical abilities, but also a lot of psychological abilities. You need to be really, you know, um, customers are gonna basically spang at you, and and your team is gonna be always angry. You need to do hiring, you need to reach out to investors. It's not an easy job. Being founder is probably one of the most toughest job in the corporate world. So that experience people value.
Yeah.
And so what I just explained is the other way around, but it also works if you're talking about it like, yeah, reverse also. So if you want to be a career PM and then want to move into entrepreneurship really helps. Definitely, PM itself is traveling through a lot of teams, uh, teaches you some amount of leadership also. So yeah, definitely yes.
Yeah. So this just last one question, and then we'll wrap up. So could you point us towards some resources and things that, as an undergrad, we can follow if we want to look up, or the things you generally follow to skill yourself as a PM?
So I would definitely say read a lot in terms of understanding of like products. Like see, be genuinely curious about what has happened in the mobile world. Okay, I'll start with like a couple of examples. Okay, now the true mobile revolution happened in 2007 when Steve Jobs launched iPhone. Okay, so now let me tell you, when that was happening in Cupertino, uh, a smart guy who just had two startup exits actually thought like we can do something with this truly mobile location. We can build a true location, truly mobile first kind of experience, because till that point of time we just have web apps, because
Nobody,
web
right?
is like, yeah, now we just launched iPhone is like a truly mobile native experience, right? Now that for me is probably the richest product example that I can give. Okay, so now the example that I'm talking about is Uber. Okay, a bunch of guys like basically thought that like you have an iPhone, it has a GPS, it tracks your location, it tells your location, you can give that location to other people also, you can connect point A to point B, and voila, you can basically request for a ride. So that's basically now what I'm gonna explain you. Now let me tell you how Garrett Camp actually got this idea. So it's very funny, right? So a lot of ideas actually float in pop culture. So being genuinely curious about the socio-cultural aspect sometimes actually gives you great ideas about products, great ideas about what new features you can build on top of an existing product. Now, Garrett Camp got this idea by watching a James Bond movie. You guys wouldn't even believe it. He was watching Casino Royale, where Daniel Craig was basically so obviously James Bond drives in a Aston Martin, right? He was basically controlling his Aston Martin using a Sony phone. Now, Garrett Campbell watching that movie, and while obviously also being extremely frustrated with the cab service in San Francisco, connected the dots and said like, "Hey, why can't I feel like James Bond? Like, why can't I have my own life?" So that time they were thinking more luxury cab service. So obviously the idea kind of transformed into something very
Evolved
different.
from, yeah.
Evolved, yeah. But then now I don't think this is like a made up legend. I actually believe in this story because this bit is true. It's true that there is an actual scene depicting that Daniel Craig orders a Aston Martin from his Sony phone in the Casino Royale movie. You guys can actually watch it. And then it's also true that Garrett Camp actually said in multiple interviews that that is where he got the real idea. And I mean,
Yeah.
not the real idea. He connected the dots somewhere in his subconscious that was there. So I would say, see, I guess the best product mind in this country is Kunal Shah, and he is a dropout, and he doesn't neither has a engineering degree nor has a business management degree, and he actually had the biggest startup exit that anyone ever had, and he's also probably the biggest self-made man in this country, at least in the startup ecosystem. Now, a lot of folks in the startup ecosystem say that Kunal Shah has the best understanding of I mean like the biggest and most amazing understanding of the consumer that anyone else has. So even if you go to his Twitter, like, so what I'm saying is, long story short, understanding of consumer is the real uh, understanding of things, rather not just consumer. It could be even enterprise. Understanding of the ecosystem basically will give you a real foothold in this career, and a real foothold to build this career. Now, obviously, you guys are not expecting this answer. I know what you're expecting, so I'll do that also. So, the real hard skills that you can learn are definitely have an understanding of coding. Now, I will dive down further. Basically, maybe get your hands dirty on the Android dev, because more often than not, most startups that you work for will build an Android app, I would assume. Android is like 98% of Indian smartphone market. So it goes without saying that you rather have an Android app than having an iOS app. So understanding Android dev really helps. If you can even build a basic dev Android app and put it on Play Store, nothing like it. Could be a cool summer project for you guys. Will really put things for you in perspective. If nothing works out, at least you guys can be an Android dev at a startup. I mean, those jobs are plenty, and you can still aspire
Yeah.
to be after that. Now, the other part is, see, definitely learn design. Nothing helps you like, see, most design people I know that are actually rockstar designers right now used to design t-shirts at their college back in 2008 2009. So simple as designing a poster. I don't know who designed the poster for this event. I really liked it. I thought like it had a very neat cool vibe to it, without being like too jazzy and vibrant and all that. So yeah, so you already have some idea of the aesthetic, right? So then now from there, understanding of interfaces, understanding of like how interaction works, the UX basically, and then just being generally curious. So when you yourself navigate through apps, right, just be curious. So what? So very simple question. Maybe you guys can think about it after the session. So are you enjoying this experience? Yes, no. Or the left side? How do you decide it?
Yeah.
That's a $1 million question.
Yeah. To
I mean,
ask
I
the
can.
why every time is very important, right? To be
Yeah,
curious
that's
and
what. Just be curious. You will learn it by yourself. You don't need to put yourself in like a very tough position like यार अभी Figma install करके सीखना है and all that. Figma तो सीख ही लेंगे. It's not really difficult. I mean, no software is difficult, honestly. You have tutorials. You have like an amount of support. I'm sure like bunch of guys already know Photoshop, Illustrator, all of that. So Figma is just another software like that. So, but then more importantly, Figma में आप करोगे क्या? बटन कैसे डिजाइन करोगे? I mean, I will tell you even funnier example. rounded corners or square corners. You can have a week long of discussion about that.
Yeah. The papers
So
on it. Yeah.
yeah. So design, you can learn like that. Now you guys would still be won't be 100% right. Even after this session, you guys can actually have a forum amongst yourself. Yes or no? Right आना है या left? Yes, left में आना है या right में आना है? Some guys would say यार मैं right ही हूँ मेरे को yes मैं easily right से मार सकता हूँ तो it should be on the right. But then you actually read from left to right. Right?
Yeah.
There are only very few languages in this world, mostly Urdu, that's read like, in the reverse way. Every other language is read from left to right. So then the first thing you will see is yes. So it matters if you probably put it on left. Again,
Yeah.
like you can probably debate it like.
Yeah, just be curious, let's say. Yeah. So any last bit of advice, just in general, you want to say?
So I can mail you the real resources because I can't talk about it in the call. So I can probably mail the resources that can help you.
Yeah,
The free
that would be great.
Yeah, free videos that I can mail you guys. And then that I would say. Lastly, I would say that I think like if you're really interested to make a career in this, definitely read a bit about it first. Understand if it is for you. So nothing really teaches you. Nothing really teaches you better than actually getting hands on it. So sometimes, like once you gotten curious about design, you actually realize that you don't like it. Once you start like reading about Android dev, you realize that you don't like it. So if you don't like it, then you can ask the hard question yourself. Uh, is this something for you? So that should help you, like with some answers. But even if you're just genuinely curious about it, only because it's a very hot profession right now, I guess you can still get ahead with it, even with all this confusion around, because you guys still have good understanding of it because you guys are all tech savvy. Every second you guys are using some or other app, so that already makes you already good at it. Because I know lawyers who basically become successful product managers, and they don't even work on lawyer tech or whatever. They work on like normal ed tech or HR tech or something like that. So if they could, I guess then you guys are probably in a much better position than them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. So today we have a lot of insights from you, and I must say a lot of unfiltered and pragmatic one. So this will definitely help us a lot, and we will definitely mail all the resources that we get from Manohar to all of you watching us. So thank you for joining us. Thanks once again, Manohar. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah. All the best, guys. If you guys probably need any other support, you guys can always email me. Happy to help always. Yep.
Yeah.